are going to record these, so then people that are absent, they can go back and watch them. And if you need some review on these, you can go back and watch it. I'll post it on Google Classroom, and you can see it on there. If I've got to stop because you decide you want to talk, I've got plenty of textbooks over there you can do all the work out of. The entire class will do it. So you won't make any friends. I've never had somebody get seriously injured because I make sure that people follow the safety, that they listen to the safety instructions. Okay? This will be the hardest one out of all of them because I'm not actually going to be using any tools. This is all just talking about the machine, or talking about safety, and just kind of reviewing stuff. So first thing, no horseplay in the shop. Okay, we've got power tools going. There's a lot of things going on in the shop. And with this many people in here, if you're sitting there running around or screwing around, doing whatever, you're going to be distracting somebody else. They might fall into a machine. You might fall into a machine. So don't be chasing each other. Don't be jumping on each other, putting each other in headlocks. Don't be doing all that kind of stuff. Okay. So no horseplay in the shop. Make sure you don't do that. Get approval to work. Let me get my apron. It's hanging up in my office. Make sure you have approval to work. So when you guys come in, you're going to have the words up on the board. After we start working and we're doing your projects every single day, I might lower the words like 2 or 3 days a week rather than every single day. And so when you come in, get the words written down. If the projector's on, it means the power's on in the shop, but that doesn't mean you come in and you start getting to the tools and start working. Wait till I tell you to go ahead and get started. Because otherwise, if you get started and I haven't told you to start yet, you might be using a machine that's not going to be safe that day. Don't endanger others. Okay, if you're going to be working at a machine, like especially this table saw right here, if you're cutting on a table saw and the board gets stuck in the blade and it kicks back, it kicks this direction towards you. And so right where Kendra's standing, if she's cutting a board, it's going to kick back towards her. And so if the people behind her don't realize that she's working on the saw, that she might have something happen, then if it kicks back, it's going to kick one of them, and she's endangering them. So she should tell them, hey, I'm doing the table saw. Just a heads up, I want you to know that your back's going to be to it, and I'm going to be using it. So don't do things like, make sure you don't endanger others. Make sure you're not setting up a saw blade with a piece of wood right on the edge of it, so when it starts, it flies back and hits somebody. Believe me, I've seen a lot of really dumb things happen. Using machine guards. Okay, this table saw has a guard on it. Make sure this is on. When we talk about the table saw, I'll give you some exceptions when you can take it off, but as a general rule, that thing's got to be on all the time. So if a machine's got a guard, it needs to be on unless it's a special situation. Make sure the floors are clean. Okay, right now, nobody's doing anything. Over here, the one of the maintenance guys was in working and left that sawdust. That doesn't happen when you guys are working. Okay, when you guys are done, the floor gets swept. These pipes that come down to the floor, they suck up sawdust. So you take a broom, you sweep the sawdust up to it, and it sucks it up into the dust collector outside. So make sure that if your job is to clean up, sweep the floor, make sure you're sweeping the floor around the benches, around the machines, everywhere. Get rid of all the dust. Carry tools properly. Is there a chisel down there on the floor?
No, there's a hammer right
Oh, it's right here. Carry tools properly. So when you're carrying a chisel, just like you learned in like kindergarten, first grade, or maybe even from your mama, carry scissors pointed down. Carry sharp tools pointed down as well. If you carry them up like this, I don't know if you've noticed, we've got some water damage in the floor, and it's buckled in some spots. So if you're walking along and carrying it up like this, trip over one of those humps in the floor, get a nice chisel to the face. Okay, I can't imagine that'd feel too good. And also, while I'm talking, be thinking of different safety posters you could make. Because one of the assignments you'll do later on, usually I leave it for a day that I know that I'll be gone. You'll have to make a safety poster. So be thinking of some of these different things I'm talking about, what you might want to make a safety poster out of. And I say that because I've had students they'll take a picture of somebody and have them laying on the floor and then hold a screwdriver or something next to their face and get an image so it looks like they got themselves in the eye with a screwdriver. So That's what made me think about that right now. So carry tools properly. Clamp work down to a bench. So if you're using like a drill or something at one of those benches back there, you're drilling into your board. The board might start spinning if you're not holding onto it. And so a good way to make sure you're holding onto it is take a clamp that board down to the table, and then drill into it. So you don't have to worry about it starting to spin while you're drilling. And same thing if you're using a handsaw, clamp it down, because then you're not trying to sit there and hold it down while you're trying to cut the board. It's sitting there, it's going to be nice and solid. This next one is really foolish, but I think I've got somebody do this every year. Don't test the sharpness of something with your finger. Okay, pretty obvious, right? You test to see how sharp something is with your fingers. Probably, if it's sharp, it's going to cut you. I have somebody do it all the time. If you are wondering if this chisel is sharp, take a piece of paper and run it along a piece of paper. If it cuts it, it's sharp. Okay? You run it on your finger and it's sharp, it's going to end up hurting you pretty bad. I had somebody last hour, they said that their stepdad does a lot of woodworking. He had a new chisel and it had fallen on the floor. He didn't realize it. He walked past it and it ended up cutting an artery in his foot. Just because it was laying on the floor and he walked past it. And so that was a very, very sharp chisel. So don't test sharpness of things with your fingers, okay? Not a good idea. Work at a normal speed. Okay, don't try to rush through things. So the rule I'd write down is don't rush. Whenever I've had people get hurt, and like I said, I've never had a major injury, I've had people get hurt. Whenever I've had somebody get hurt, and when I talk about individual machines, I'll talk about, like this might have happened on this machine, or this might have happened on this machine. I'll talk about those. And when I do that, the common thread you'll find in all of them is that, first of all, the person wasn't paying attention. Second of all, they were probably rushing. Just about every time I've had somebody get hurt, it's because they're rushing. Worst injury I've had here was on this machine. And a student there was 3 or 4 different safety things he didn't listen to, but then he was also in a hurry, ended up pushing his board through real fast, his finger slipped right into the blades. And so didn't lose his fingers, just tore up the tips of them. But that could have been easily avoided if he had listened to the safety instructions and he had been working at a normal rate, not trying to get through it as fast as he could. Next thing, use proper tools. Okay? Like this right here is a chisel. It's for scraping wood. It's for chiseling out, taking out pieces of wood. It's not for scraping off glue. Okay, we have special scrapers for scraping off glue. And I'll show you those in a little bit. I'll show you those. So don't sit there and grab a chisel and be like, I'm going to chisel all this glue off, because then what happens is we've got some really nice, expensive chisels. It tears up the end of the chisel, and then it doesn't chisel right anymore. I've had people take a chisel or a hammer, and they need to put a hole in their board, so they take the chisel or the hammer and they just pound into the board, and that's how they make the hole. Okay, use the right tool. You need to put a hole in your board, grab a drill. Okay? Never leave things on the table of a machine. Like this right here is a table saw. When you're using it, don't leave this stuff sitting here. So if I'm using this saw, I'm going to get all this stuff off and not have it on here. Because if you've got it sitting, especially on this side, it can go right into the blade while it's running. If you got it sitting over here, it's not necessarily in the way, but when you're running your board, so if somebody comes up and they need to adjust it and they slide this over, your stuff's going to be in the way. So don't pile stuff up on the saw. I've had people, they'll come over if they've got 5 or 6 boards they got to cut, just set those over here, cut what they need to, set it back over here, out of the way, and that's fine. But then one of the things that we try to stress in this class is tools that you can use at home. You can buy a table saw for like $125. Now, a $125 table saw is not going to be something heavy duty and strong and super heavy like these things where they're not going to vibrate. $125 table saw, when you're using it, you're probably going to have to hold it down with one foot and then push your boards through, and it's going to be vibrating a little bit. So if you leave stuff piled up on that saw while it's running, it's vibrating, the stuff's going to bounce off the saw. So make sure that you don't leave stuff piled up on the machine while you're working. Always be paying attention. Know what's going on around you. Okay, just like I said with Keandra standing right there at the table saw, if you're at that bench behind her and you hear that table saw running, you might want to check and see who's running it and what they're doing. Because as we start working, we'll kind of see who the people are that are kind of scary on the machines.